Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is the first premier to take Ottawa's carbon tax to court. Since then, he has garnered provincial allies across the country. But what happens now to those other cases, including Ontario's? Scott Moe joins us now from Regina. Thanks for being there, Premier. It's nice to see you. You lost this round in your province's Court of Appeal. You said earlier today that there are strong arguments for an appeal. So what's your next move?
The next move is we will be appealing to the Supreme Court of Canada. The fact of the matter is the decision here today is really game one of a series, if you will, ultimately landing in the Supreme Court. We always indicated we would go there if the opportunity was available. With today's split decision, there are strong grounds for us to appeal this to the Supreme Court, as there was two judges that on a panel of 5 that had put forward a detailed dissenting opinion. So we will be appealing this to the Supreme Court, as we will be intervening in all of the other provincial cases that are coming forward as well.
Look, I know we haven't had time to read the whole thing. It's a couple of 100 pages long, but you talk about this dissenting opinion. It's a long one, it's a detailed one. In that opinion, what is the main idea that makes you think that, listen, I can take this to the Supreme Court of Canada and possibly win?
There's two individuals that were on the panel that don't feel the carbon tax being implemented in Saskatchewan is constitutional. It's as simple as that. There was a dissenting opinion that stated just that. So we'll be taking it to the Supreme Court, and we'll be hoping for a more favorable outcome there. As I said, this is going to be heard in a number of provincial courts prior to that, quite likely, and we'll be intervening in each of those as well.
So, you know, today the Federal Environment Minister, Catherine McKenna, asked today that you and your provincial counterparts join Ottawa's plan and stop this legal fight. You've lost, she said, so, you know, just get with the program and join the federal carbon tax. Do you ever see a carbon tax in Saskatchewan, a federal one?
That is not the intent in this province for a host of reasons. But the first and foremost is that it quite simply doesn't work. Listen, the fact of the matter is no Canadians should not confuse taking action with respect to climate change with a carbon tax. Those are two very separate discussions, very separate conversations that do need to happen. A carbon tax, largely ineffective, will ultimately move jobs out of our jurisdictions to other areas of the world. Taking action on climate change is something that we take very seriously in this province. We have aggressive targets in a number of our industries operating in Saskatchewan to lower our emissions, to enhance our sequestration opportunities, and then to really share that innovation with others all around the world. That's how we'll address a global challenge, not by taxing the hardworking citizens and families here in the province of Saskatchewan. So we should not confuse the two. We should not confuse taking action on climate change with the federal government's ineffective carbon tax. They are very different.
I want to take this to another conversation about Western alienation. Jason Kenney talking about, you know, the anger or you know, harnessing the anger of Western Canada. He even is saying that he will shut the taps to British Columbia if British Columbia continues opposing the pipeline. Where do you stand on that?
Well, we're seeing policies come essentially from the federal government in the way of this carbon tax that we're discussing today, or Bill C-69, Bill C-48, that are directly targeted at not just Western Canadian industries, but Canadian industries that are creating wealth for Canadians right across this great country. And you're not just seeing this pushback coming from Western Canada. When you're seeing provincial elections being held across this nation where policies like the carbon tax are the ballot question, you're seeing governments vote very directly against those policies that are forcing investment out of our nation, forcing jobs out of our nation, and ultimately hurting Canadians with no substantial or real environmental benefits. This is the ideology that is coming from our federal government, in many cases supported by the British Columbia government, and this is where you are seeing some angst, if you will, not just in Western Canada, but you're seeing it in communities right across the nation.
So, you know, in those provinces that have rejected the carbon tax, people are getting money back, rebates back. I'm in Ontario, I got a rebate back. I imagine in Saskatchewan the same thing. How do you counter that? I mean, people are seeing rebates on their, federal government rebates. How do you think your fight against the federal carbon tax will do once these rebates hit home?
I think that just further goes to show that this actually isn't, this carbon tax isn't about the environment at all. It's a wealth redistribution program that has been put forward by the federal government. The fact of the matter is this. We now have in this nation 5 provinces representing 60% of the population that don't want this Trudeau carbon tax implemented on their residents in their respective communities. It's an ineffective tax. It has not reduced emissions in other areas of the world. And I don't know why we would think it would actually do so here. This doesn't preclude the very important conversation that we need to have across our nation and how we can ensure that we are doing better by our environment, whether it's our impact on water, soil, or yes, our atmosphere. And we are having that conversation here in Western Canada, in Saskatchewan, and all of our industries. The conversation that we choose not to have is taxing the hardworking families in our province.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, thanks for this. I get the feeling we'll be talking about this for quite a bit. Thank you so much.